Hello team, welcome back and let's discuss about the labels in Kubernetes. We will see what are the labels and why labels are required in Kubernetes. So basically labels is a metadata in the form of key value pair which you can attach with the Kubernetes object such as pods, deployment, replica set, services, jobs, cron jobs. You can attach the labels with any object available in the Kubernetes, and that is a metadata which is attached with the Kubernetes object. Labels don't have any functional impact on your object, but that is a associated information with your object which will be used to filter out the Kubernetes resources if required. So as I just mentioned, that labels are intended to be used to identify attributes of Kubernetes object. You can attach the labels with your Kubernetes object. If you don't want to attach the labels with your Kubernetes object, that is completely optional. If you want to attach more than one label with your Kubernetes resources, that is also completely optional. So if you want, you can either attach 0, 1 or more than one labels with your Kubernetes object, and labels are only used to identify the attributes of your Kubernetes object. Also, label can be attached with your Kubernetes object at the creation time, and subsequently you can modify the object anytime and you can attach the label with your object anytime. As I just mentioned, that this is not required that the Kubernetes object must have the labels. That is a optional field, and if you want, you can attach one or more than one label with a single Kubernetes object. The only condition is label should be in the key value pair form. So let's understand why we need the label. So suppose you are creating some Kubernetes object and you want to associate some kind of metadata with that particular object. Suppose you want to associate the release, that whenever we are creating the object, in which particular release object is this, that is a stable release object, beta release object, alpha release object, 1.0.1, 2.0.2, 2.0.1. What is the release which is associated with that particular object? Because whenever you are creating the resource in your production, the release is a very important factor, so you can associate the release. Similarly, if you want, you can associate the environment information with your Kubernetes object, that the particular Kubernetes object is basically created for the QA, dev, production, performance, for a specific customer, for a specific activity, for regression, or whatever the environment you are supporting in your organization, you can attach the environment information with your resources. Another kind, you can specify the function, right? You can specify the app function of that particular resource. Similarly, you can define that what is the tier of that particular application, that is a front end application, back end application, messaging service, notification service, caching service, what kind of service is that? So there could be the multiple combination you can create, and you can use your own labels, but these are few famous labels which I mentioned over here, which generally comes in a standard whenever we are defining the labels for a Kubernetes object. Let's see what is the syntax of the labels whenever we are going to associate the label with a Kubernetes object. The syntax will look like this. So till date we have seen that we was creating the pods. In the pod we was using the metadata, and in the metadata we was only using the name. But you can also attach the labels with your metadata, right? Within the labels you can define n number of key value pair. Like in my example, I'm taking environment, production, app, and Nginx. So over here, once I'm creating this pod which have a name label demo, I'm mentioning that this particular pod is associated with the production environment. So whenever somebody is going to execute something for the production environment, that thing is applicable for that particular resource as well, right? Let's understand one more use case of the label. So suppose you have a few services like the server, database, and a load balancer. Similarly, these resources are basically created for the dev environment. Although you are using the same cluster, there is no need to separate out the dev and production clusters. So what you did, you created the resources for your production environment on the same Kubernetes cluster, and again you have the server, database, and the load balancer. So right now we have the two kind of resources First kind resources are basically the development resources. Second kind resources are the production resources. But although we are using the same cluster, so both of the resources are executing on the same cluster. Now suppose you want to upgrade the development side resources, or you want to delete the development side resources. How you will do that? Because right here we don't have any kind of identification with the production and the development. Both of the things are running on the same cluster, right? So how we can identify that which resource is a development resource and we can clean up that resource? This is a problem. So what we can do, we can associate the metadata with each resource, right? In that case, once we are creating the resources, we can attach the information with the resources, right? What kind of information we can attach with the resources? We can attach like environment is dev, environment is dev, environment is dev. And whenever we are creating the production, we can define the environment production. So now we have some kind of information which is associated with the resource itself. And if we want to filter out all the dev resources, we can filter out all the resources which are associated with the dev environment using a single kubectl command, right? And we can perform any activity on these resources, whatever the activity we want to perform. Either if you want, you can delete all the resources in a one go, right? So that is the benefit of associated the metadata with your resources. Please remember, the metadata is a very necessary component, although that don't have any functional impact, but that have the operational impact on your resources. If you are associating the proper metadata with your Kubernetes resources, that is going to help you in the long run, right? Whenever your environment will grow, that is going to definitely help you in the long run. And even if you are using the cloud applications or you have the cloud native solution in your firms, in your organization, then you must be following the labels, because you can associate the labels with the cloud resources as well, and you know that what is the benefits of the labels. So that is the brief introduction about the label. In the coming lecture, we will see how we can associate the labels with the Kubernetes resources. Thank you, team. See you next time.